obscure stuff because we're going to Japan to save the world with Power Rangers named after birds. Wait, what? Greetings and welcome to the Obscure Room. I'm that BioMechanical dude, and in this show I'll be reviewing obscure retro games, whether they're good, bad, or just okay. Today's game is based on the Super Sentai series. Super Sentai is a long string of Japanese TV shows where the main protagonists are a team of superheroes who use electronic battlesuits and often giant robots to fight otherworldly creatures which try to take over the Earth. As you might have guessed, these TV shows are what inspired the Power Rangers franchise, which itself consists of many different TV series. But in 1991, before Power Rangers came along and popularized this type of shows worldwide, there was a series known as Choujin Sentai Jetman. It was pretty well received and soon got a video game for the Famicom. The game was developed by Natsume, the company behind excellent games such as Power Blade, Shatterhand, and a little series you might have heard of known as Harvest Moon. It's safe to say that this game is also very well made. But just how good is it? Today, we're gonna find out. This is Choujin Sentai Jetman. The game itself doesn't give any story, so I'm gonna paraphrase the plot of the show. In the year 1990X, scientists develop birdonic waves, a new technology which gives the subject superhuman abilities. The defense agency known as Sky Force chooses 5 of its officials to use this technology. Ryo Tendo is successfully exposed to the waves and becomes the first Jetman. However, their ship is attacked and destroyed by Viren, an interdimensional terrorist organization. Because of this, the remaining 4 birdonic waves become scattered on Earth, hitting 4 civilians. Amidst the chaos, Ryo and the project director Aya Odagiri escape. They begin looking for the 4 civilians, training them to use their powers and together stop Viren. The game's presentation is what you'd expect from Natsume. The graphics are well made with nice pixel art and good palette choices. I do have a few minor nitpicks, but I'll save most of them for later. Considering this had to compete with the 16-bit games at the time, it does a relatively good job at it. What's really great about Choujin Sentai Jetman, however, is the music. My god, does this game have an awesome soundtrack! And it's no surprise, the composer for this game also did the soundtrack for Shatterhand, which was amazing in its own right. The title screen has a pretty cool 8-bit rendition of the show's opening theme, setting the tone which the later tracks would follow. Every level has a catchy, kick-ass theme that keeps you excited. I guess the only criticism I have towards this soundtrack is that it's not the most memorable. If I try to think of any tracks off the top of my head, only a few would come to mind, but they, as well as the rest of the music here, are worth listening to. But good graphics and music don't make a good game. Let's take a look at the gameplay. Here the developers decided to make things Mega Man style and have a level selection. You select your level and then you select a Jetman. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna refer to them as Rangers, not only because I'm used to calling them that way, but also because it would be odd to refer to the female characters as Jetmen. Is everything clear? Okay, let's go back to the review. As usual, the Rangers all have similar looking color-coded uniforms, and this time they're all named after birds. Ryo, for instance, goes by the name Red Hawk. We've also got Blue Swallow, Black Condor, White Swan, Yellow Owl. What, no Great Pigeon? You pick one and start the level. The game is your standard side-scroller. Go to the right, avoid obstacles, kill enemies, etc. The main baddies are the usual foot soldiers in grey uniforms, which you see in pretty much every Super Sentai or Power Rangers show. Some run towards you, others shoot at you. There are also insects, these jumping lion, I don't really know what that is. There are barriers you have to break through and the occasional laser cannons. Some enemies drop power-ups that will either give you health or let you use your special move. Really, there's nothing new here. So you might be wondering, does picking a ranger have any effect on the gameplay? Yes, actually. Well, sort of. There's two types of rangers. The male ones all have a melee attack. Red Hawk and Black Condor, for example, have a bringer sword and Yellow Owl has a wing gauntlet. The female rangers, Blue Swallow and White Swan, use bird blasters to fight the enemies. Even though you can shoot the enemies from a distance, the shots from the blasters deal less damage than the melee weapons, so the two weapon types are evened out. Using this style means that you'll have to develop slightly different fighting strategies, but it also adds to the game's difficulty in a way. By pressing up and B, you can do this high kick. It has the same strength as a melee attack and can be helpful for enemies at a higher altitude or when you're using the blaster and one of them corners you. And by pressing start, you can execute a special move that will clear all the enemies on the screen. You can use it once per level unless you get a power-up that will let you use it again. These special moves, however, are a bit of a wasted opportunity. Instead of having each ranger do their own specific attack, they all just fly up in the air and clear everything on the screen. In fact, the rangers themselves could have been a little more unique. They all use the same palette swap sprites, and having only two types of attacking when you have 5 rangers at your disposal is kind of disappointing. Each one has a different amount of health, but this is not noticeable at first. The fact that there are only 2 types of rangers can kind of work to your advantage, however. Instead of losing lives when you die, here you lose rangers, and when all of them are dead, it's game over. So if a ranger that uses a melee weapon dies, you can just pick another one of the same type. Then again, you might have to pick a ranger with less health, and since their attack power will be the same, you'll be kinda screwed. Another thing that might be seen as a problem is the level design. All the areas are kind of flat. Even though you can jump, there's not a whole lot of platforming unlike other side-scrollers. This is another wasted opportunity in my opinion. Since the game doesn't have much depth with its combat, some jumping around would have been nice. There is some platforming here and there, and some of the levels have these nice alternate paths, but that's about it. It's also worth noting that the game isn't that difficult. Any experienced gamer can get through the levels without dying much. This is all okay at first, but after you've played the game for a while, you start to notice the flat level design, the lack of variety, and the low difficulty, and the game starts feeling monotonous. Like in most games, you have to fight a boss at the end of each level. And of course, it's a giant monster. And of course, you fight it with a giant robot. The Jetman's vehicles join together to form Great Icarus, which is this show's equivalent to the Megazord. The boss battles are fought in this one-on-one fighting mode, which is like a simplified version of any regular fighting game. You can punch with B, jump with A, and block with down. Some of the bosses jump, so maybe you can jump as well and hit them, but it's hard to pull off, and the bosses themselves don't jump that often anyway. In some cases, it'll even leave you open for attacks. So basically, don't jump, because it's pointless. Blocking is probably the most useful thing you can do here. The bosses in this game will try to kill you as soon as possible, but you can block most of their attacks and hit them back as soon as they're done. However, you shouldn't take your time just sitting there blocking, because the boss's attacks still deal half the damage they usually do. You should strike as soon as you can while still being careful. What's really interesting about the battles are the special moves. Both you and the boss have these meters that fill up over time. You can use your meter to do different special moves. The more filled up the meter is, the more powerful the move is. You can throw fireballs, shoot lasers, shoot an electric blast that stuns the boss, and shoot a powerful horizontal crescent beam. The bosses, however, have special moves of their own, but you can easily block them. Speaking of the bosses, they're basically all monsters from the show, so naturally they have some weird designs. I mean, look at this. We've got this mirror monster, a camera monster, a dimensional mammoth. This guy's got a bus for a head. That can't be good. And what's this thing? It looks like something, but I don't think it's anything at all. So yeah, the bosses are pretty weird. It's pretty awesome when you beat a boss, because Great Icarus does a finishing move. Yeah! But for all the awesomeness, there are still problems here. The bosses may look different, but they lack variety in the way they fight. It's always the same thing. They lunge at you and they use their special moves. Sometimes they'll back up quickly after they've attacked you, but that's about it. So even if some are harder than others, you still end up using the same strategy to fight them. I think you have figured out the game's main problem by now. There is not much variety. The game doesn't do a whole lot with the given mechanics, and so every level kind of feels the same, with nothing really striking or unique about it except the way it looks. Now you might say, this is NES, you can't have all this awesome original stuff for every character and level, but look at games like Konami's Bucky O'Hare or even Samurai Pizza Cats, another gem that was never released outside of Japan. Both these games managed to have a cast of characters, each with their own unique abilities, and have a variety of interesting levels. That's pretty much all I have to say about most of the game. I will now talk about the final level and ending, so if you don't want anything spoiled, click here to skip to the end of the review. After many challenges and monsters, you reach the end. Virum's headquarters, the final area, which is the Death Star. Because why not? The final level itself is actually pretty well put together. Like any good last level, it puts everything you have learned during the game to the test. You get to see some interesting challenges and things can get somewhat intense. The area is longer than any of the other ones, there are bullets and lasers flying everywhere, the music keeps you excited, and you get a great final level to end the game. At the end, you fight Destruction Beast Semimaru. Now I think we all know you don't mess with a guy called Destruction Beast Semimaru. Well, even though he's tougher than any of the other bosses, he still uses pretty much the same patterns. He does have some stuff of his own, like this lightning blast, but like all special moves, it's easy to block. He does, however, block your special moves unless you're close to him, and after he lunges, he backs up immediately, so he's definitely trickier to fight. And once you beat him, it's still satisfying. After defeating the final boss, the Rangers use the Great Icarus Mazer to destroy Virum's headquarters. Wait, why didn't they do that in the first place? Save the Earth! Thank you for Jetman! Well, I didn't really give you Jetman, but if you say so. And you! And me? And me what? Oh, nothing. Okay then. So that was Choujin Sentai Jetman. It was actually pretty good. I mean, yes, the game does have a major problem with its monotony, but the things it does are pretty enjoyable. The graphics and music are great and it's fun to play. Not to mention, it's a pretty short game. Considering this was a licensed project, the guys at Natsume probably had a deadline and a short time frame to complete it. Also, it was 1991, so they were probably more focused on Shatterhand, which ended up being a large game and did some interesting things with its design. With that in mind, it's actually kind of impressive that they managed to make Choujin Sentai Jetman this good. A lot of licensed games end up failing because they had to be made in a short amount of time. So when this game's only real issue is the lack of variety, can you really complain? Wait a minute, I just did that. Well, shit. Anyway, if you're a fan of the Choujin Sentai Jetman TV show, Power Rangers, or Super Sentai in general, then I suggest you try this game out. For what it is, it's pretty enjoyable. Join me next time when I'll be taking a look at an interesting little point-and-click adventure game featuring the artwork of H.R. Geiger. Take care until your next visit to the Obscure Room. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I'm really interested to see what kind of thoughts and criticisms you might have. And if you want to stay tuned for more awesome retro game related videos, you might want to click that subscribe button. Besides video game reviews, I also make chiptunes and various video game music covers, and there's more stuff coming down the way. You can also check out my previous 2 reviews. On the left we have Castlevania for MS-DOS, and yes, there is Castlevania for MS-DOS, and it's absolute garbage. So check that out, and you can also check out my review of Kickmaster. a really obscure NES game that I think is absolutely awesome and didn't get the attention it deserves. And if you're viewing this on a tablet or any kind of mobile device, then all the links are in the description below.